Our current economy is based on the belief that the best way to meet human needs is through investor-owned corporations, whose primary purpose is to maximize the returns to the shareholders who have invested in them. Those investors hire capable, highly paid managers to ensure that every possible method is employed to maximize profits. The root of the problem is not the people who work in these organizations, but the structure. The investor-owned corporation, with its core focus on maximization of profit, exerts pressure on its managers and workers to take actions to raise profit, even if the actions are destructive. When corporations do good things, it is not because of the structure, but because the people in corporations are simply good, decent people. The result is that our economy is organized to use nature and all of humanity primarily in the service of profit rather than of basic human need. The consequence is that we have growing income inequality, poverty, hunger, unaffordable housing, and eroding health care, all in the midst of massive increases in global wealth. Average real incomes of 90% of Canadians are declining or stagnating, while billionaire wealth during the COVID-19 pandemic increased by over 25% a year, and it continues to grow. The richest 20% of Canadians own almost 75% of all wealth, while the bottom 40% share 1.2%. This increase is a result of simple greed, a human vice famously explored in the iconic 1987 film directed by Oliver Stone called Wall Street. In the film, the main villain, played by actor Michael Douglas, is Gordon Gekko, a Wall Street insider trader who makes a riveting speech in which he declares that greed is good. What is remarkable about this is that although the Gekko character was written as a villain, money managers all over Wall Street and throughout the Western financial world embraced Gekko as a hero. Here is Michael Douglas at the opening of the 2010 sequel to this film, reflecting on the irony and greed.
Well, I think Oliver and I were both pretty stunned after the first one, how they perceived Gekko. An insider trader, a guy who destroyed companies, destroyed people, was a very, very well-written villain, and people are attracted to villains. We just never anticipated that all these MBAs, these people in business school, would just be ranting and raving that this was the person that they wanted to be. And yet, 22 years later, I imagine that a lot of those MBA students are heading up these investment banking companies now because the greed has not stopped.
Our capital-driven economy is designed to do whatever is necessary to make a profit today, regardless of the consequences. In fact, investor-owned corporations like those in the fossil fuel industry have engaged in massive disinformation campaigns about climate change and doubled down on profitable activities that will accelerate the loss of biodiversity. According to Professor Michael Mann, an American climatologist and geophysicist, author of The New Climate War, Exxon Corporation had research as early as the 1970s confirming the devastating impact of fossil fuels on the climate, but buried it. Even today, the fossil fuel industry's internal communications, aired at congressional hearings in 2022, betray their intention to pursue profit regardless of the consequences. Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the UN, describes this existential threat to life on Earth in very stark terms.
The worst risk is that we miss our targets. The worst risk is that we don't reach 1.5 degrees as a limit, that we go over it, and that we precipitate the world into a catastrophic situation. That is the biggest risk.
As market economists have told us, the purpose of business is business. Investor-driven business is not designed to meet human need unless it can be done in a way that is very profitable. The question is, can we build a different economy? one designed to meet our basic needs and protect the ability of the planet to support life? Can we build an economy based on the best of what it means to be human? Martin A. Nowak, a global expert on evolution and Harvard professor of biology, documents in his book, Super Co-operators, how evolutionary success was driven more by cooperation than competition. It is far more often the most cooperative who are more fit to survive. Many philosophers and even behavioral economists agree that people are more altruistic than selfish, and that humans get their greatest satisfaction and joy from helping others. Rutger Bregman, a Dutch historian and author in a new book entitled Humankind, A Hopeful History, convincingly makes the case that people share far more often than behaving selfishly. Building an economy on selfishness and greed was clearly a destructive mistake the world can no longer afford. Can we build an economy that reflects caring, sharing, honesty, and working together, the best of human qualities? In his book, From Corporate Globalization to Global Cooperation, Professor Tom Webb explores the contribution made by cooperatives.
So 3 billion people around the world have already begun building that economy. They are building cooperatives and social enterprises whose purpose is not maximizing the returns to the wealthy, but meeting human need. While not perfect, cooperatives are the most consistent, the largest and the most promising alternative to build the economy that humanity needs. The World Cooperative Monitor tells us at least 12% of the people on Earth belong to one or more of the 3 million cooperatives on the planet. Cooperatives provide jobs or work opportunities for 330 million people. The 300 largest cooperatives, or mutuals, generate $2.1 trillion in turnover annually, while providing the services and the infrastructure that society needs for a comfortable life.
I always think it's deeply disturbing when you hear about exploitation of workers, when you hear about people looking at decision-making based on how they can make more profits and exploit workers, looking at how they can exploit the planet. And I think for us as a people-based business, so that people are at the heart of our decision-making, that you inevitably end up with a much more softer, more accommodating form of business that is designed to bring out the strengths of all the people, from the workers at the bottom to the workers at the top, because that's what the co-op is about. It's about bringing together all the strengths of people, whether they be worker cooperatives, solidarity cooperatives, insurance cooperatives, farming cooperatives. And a quick example, I was in India working with talking to a large multi-billion-dollar Indian fertilizer business. And I went to visit a small farming cooperative that was serviced by this fertilizer cooperative. And the peasant farmers there, who were really lovely guys, they were telling me how they are being taught by the fertilizer company how to grow products organically. And they were going to put together, they were building a biodigester so they wouldn't have to buy fertilizers. And I went back to the chairman of the company. I said, "You're teaching your farmers how to do without your product, and you're working against the needs of your co-op." He said, "We have to save the soil. That's what co-ops are about. That's what we can add and give to our farmers." And that's the sort of difference that working in a cooperative means. And can you imagine that? If we had political leaders and economic leaders who could say, that's the approach we want to bring together people like that, it would just be an immense change. And my goodness, isn't the world crying out for that right now?
The cooperative organizational model is enormously flexible. Successful cooperatives vary from very large to small and are involved in almost every type of business, from art to heavy industry. Some have a single type of member, like consumers or workers or farmers or fishers. Others include different types of members, like workers, consumers, and community members. In this segment of the film, we will visit a variety of cooperatives that illustrate how flexible the organizational model can be. The world's largest integrated network of cooperatives is centered around the city of Mondragon in Spain's Basque Country. In 2011, when Spain was reeling from a 27% unemployment rate, the rate of unemployment in the Basque Country was 14%, and in the three valleys where the cooperatives were concentrated, it was 2%. Today, Mondragon employs over 80,000 people in 95 worker cooperatives in 4 areas of activity: finance, industry, retail, and knowledge. The gap between the highest and lowest paid Mondragon cooperative worker is less than 10 to 1. By way of comparison, in Canada this year, the 100 highest paid chief executives of S&P TSX listed firms were paid 227 times than the average Canadian worker, whose annual pay is $59,300. Mondragon cooperatives, along with Northern Italian worker-owned cooperatives, like Cefla, produce everything from large industrial production equipment to furniture to car parts to art. In the northern Italian region of Emilia-Romagna, with a population of 4.4 million, cooperatives make up over 30% of the economy.
Vancity was established 76 years ago by 14 working class folks in Vancouver to provide financial access to those that were overlooked and underserved. The idea was a member-owned credit union to serve all of society and all of the communities in which Vancity operated at the time. And really the principles of inclusion and social justice are really what have been the cornerstone or foundation of the organization since then. It's why Vancity has had many firsts that were motivated by member and community well-being and inclusion, such as in 1961, we were the first in Canada to provide loans for women without a male having to co-sign, which is unthinkable today. And today we serve the financial needs of over 543,000 member owners and their communities. Vancity has 55 community branches across Metro Vancouver, our Fraser Valley, Vancouver Island, and Alert Bay on Cormorant Island, which is a remote branch that we serve the community through. Vancity is Canada's largest credit union with over 33 billion in assets under administration. And really this was built with working with other cooperatives and community partners to address societal and systematic issues that exist today where we live, including climate change and equity.
Gailey is different than other players in the industry, primarily because we are of farmers, by farmers, and for farmers. We are, as you know, a cooperative. We're owned by almost 1,400 dairy farmers from across Manitoba and Ontario. We're also owned by about 126 goat members as well. So we are different in the element that we are not just being able to be concerned about production on the farm. We're also different because we're controlling or having influence on everything that's happening from farm right to fork, through production on the farm, through processing in our plants, on being able to influence markets, on being able to respond to markets. And we always do that with our members, our farmers, as first and foremost in our thoughts and in our actions.
Co-operators is a cooperatively governed financial services organization that provides all range of insurance and also other financial advice and financial services. The organization itself is governed by 45 other cooperatives, or credit union organizations, and because of the way we are governed, it means that we can take a longer term perspective to the way we think about our business, and really kind of put the mission or the purpose of the organization at the center of our thinking. So in our case, that's financial security for Canadians and our communities. That's our driving purpose. And being governed as a cooperative means that is always the starting point for our thinking. And it means that we can afford to take a long-term view of what it's going to take to provide financial security for Canadians and their communities. Different than it might if we had more short-term pressures on our financial performance, for example, in terms of quarterly results or that kind of thing.
There's definitely something different about coming to work within a worker co-op, because as a member, you have a vested interest in the success of the co-op. But also we all come from different backgrounds. So some of us might come with entrepreneurial backgrounds, while others might come from, we might have been working in a manufacturing plant before we came to work at Just Us. And so often there's an assumption that there's this collective entrepreneurial spirit that might come from a worker co-op, but that comes through, again, shared values, a shared identity of the co-op, and also a very participatory model within the operations of the business.
For decades, healthcare workers, in particular PSWs, have been undervalued and underpaid, overworked. So I think that was the motivation to find a way to create a better work environment for PSWs and also offer good quality care to our clients. And a co-op seemed to be the way to do that.
In my opinion, the solidarity co-op model, or the multi-stakeholder model, is actually the most subversive against the corporate capitalist structures that we have and that are the traditional business models. Bringing to the boardroom workers, users, and community members was a really interesting way to take capital to some degree out of the equation when it comes to negotiating fair practices in labor, fair prices for the users, and community economic development and support within with the citizens that are stakeholders in the business.
So welcome to Cliffside Court Community Housing Co-op. We are a co-op of about 8 low-rise buildings, roughly 86 units, 1, 2, 3 bedrooms in this beautiful cul-de-sac just near the Scarborough Bluffs. We love our community. It's our own little quiet oasis and really safe and beautiful environment for our families to grow. That it's not just for affordable housing, it's for community development. So what that means is, we expect that you're going to participate in the community. We expect that you're going to participate in the co-op, and that you're going to really look out for your neighbors. It's people helping people.
The purpose of a cooperative is to meet member and community needs.
Cooperative values do rub off, and what has made me especially proud during this COVID 2.5 years, having gone through a crisis that none of us ever imagined, the one thing that continues to be able to give me heart and to give me strength with regards to cooperative values is that our members, even though they're isolated from what happens in our 14 processing plants, have always been concerned about the safety, the health, and the well-being of our employees, to ensure that they're still getting 40 hours of pay a week, to being able to make sure that their families are being taken care of. And those are social values that come out of the cooperative values, which resonate across our organization.
In deciding to incorporate as a cooperative, the founders adopt a set of internationally recognized values to guide their relationships and a set of operating principles to guide their operations. Whether large, like many worker co-ops in Mondragon and northern Italy, or small, like the student-led Solidarity Co-op to address food security at Concordia University in Montreal, they all embody the values and principles of international cooperativism.
Cooperatives all across the world are aspiring to a set of principles and values that are part of the co-op movement and have been for hundreds of years. So they're member-owned organisations, so they're owned and controlled by their members, which means, of course, that they are looking particularly at the needs of their members, and their members are determining the policies that the cooperative will pursue. And that, of course, means that the managers of the cooperative are not incentivized to maximize profits. They're incentivized for the success of the co-op to actually meet the needs of their members, whatever that may be. And you'll find cooperatives in just about every sector of the economy. And I've been across the world in my role as president of the International Cooperative Alliance and seen the impact of cooperatives in local communities, where you can see that the values and principles of the co-op movement are so crucial that not only do they create strong cooperatives on the ground, and in some developing countries, 60% of the real economy is based in cooperatives. But what happens is that the education, which is part of a cooperative movement, means that the leaders of the cooperatives often become village or community leaders as well. So it's changing the whole ethos of the area and the community in which the cooperatives are developing. So the essential difference is about being people driven.
These are the 7 principles of cooperativism as developed by the International Cooperative Alliance, with 150 years of input from cooperatives all over the world. We asked some cooperators to explain the 7 cooperative principles as they practice them in their co-ops.
So everyone has a requirement within our bylaws to volunteer for a minimum of 5 hours per month. That volunteer work can look like anything from participating on the board of directors directly to participating on one of our various committees, so our social committee, gardening committee, recycling committee, or it could be within the landscaping and maintenance of the general co-op area itself. But 5 hours is the minimum requirement. A lot of our people go well above and beyond the 5-hour requirement. And it's really nice to just see members come in and pitch in where they can. But it's, the requirement's 5 hours.
Well, one member, one vote means that no matter how many shares you might hold, the Hive Cafe doesn't happen to have preferred shares, but every social share means one vote. So there's only one individual human being gets one say in the organization at general assemblies, but also if they're an elected member at the board level. And to us, that means, you know, there's equity. Except for support organizations, which that's an entity as opposed to an individual human being, but that's still only one vote. So there's just sort of equitable representation across the board.
So we're continuously inspired by small producers. We're inspired by their stronger sense of democracy. We often, you know, in Western thought and Western culture, we often speak to how important democracy is. Well, we actually don't practice it that frequently. You know, we have of course we have democratic governments, and of course we go and have a vote every 2 or 3 or 4 years to vote in certain levels of government. But culturally, we're less attuned to the idea of democracy in our everyday. And this is a cultural component of many of the small producer communities that we work within in the global south. There's a very strong sense of democracy. That everybody, you're stronger as a collective than you are as an individual.
Gailey Foods typically gives out between 47% and 50% of its profit back to its members in the form of patronage. So whereas individuals who are not members of the co-op certainly have the same playing field when it comes to being able to get the price for the milk, what Gailey Food members get is patronage. And we're proud that You know, last year we gave out almost $17 million back to our farmers. And where does that $17 million go to? It goes to pay for their kids' schooling, it goes to buy a new tractor, it goes to buy fertilizer, it goes back into capital on their farm. So our members have a little bit of an advantage on being able to share in the wealth, to share in the patronage, the revenue of the co-op.
Every year, we distribute 30% of our annual net profits through our Shared Success program. And it's how we share the success of our credit union, which reaffirms our values as a financial cooperative. And since 1994, we've given back more than $422.3 million to our members and communities, which again is something we're extremely proud of as we have witnessed the positive outcomes and ripple effect it's had on our membership and on our communities. And it really is based around our purpose, working with members and communities to help them thrive and prosper. And again, this is what truly motivates us, is to grow our organization and remain financially sound, but motivated by supporting our members and our communities.
It was necessary to start a co-op to disrupt and democratize the food system and bring the power back to the students. The co-op model has changed the way we deal with food quality because most of the time in normal traditional businesses, people vote with their feet and their money, but in the co-op model, our owners, users, and workers actually vote with their votes. So we develop policies and procedures and procurement based on actual input. Because we've actually put the determination and the autonomy back in the hands of the people that might have been otherwise considered food insecure. This isn't charitable, this is self-determination.
I think one of the key things that I would like to say about why we started this was really about the empowerment of women, and the empowerment of women in particular in the care sector. And I just want to, make that point that, women have been devalued in our care sector for a very, very long time. And this is an opportunity for women to step up, take control of their own work environment, not just be the caring people, but we get to take care of ourselves and take control of our work environment. This is especially important for new Canadians and racialized women. They are predominantly, they're a huge population when it comes to caregivers and PSWs, especially in urban centers. And we have stories after stories of traditional companies, exploiting them really with low wages and not paying proper overtime, not paying all of those things. So I think it's important to know that, we are doing this. It is women taking care of women and taking care of each other.
As a credit union, education is essential to how we support member financial resiliency and how we support communities in deeper, more meaningful ways. And a couple of examples there is Each One Teach One is a program with trained employees delivering basic financial skill workshops in our community settings, such as community centers or church basements. And these are workshops that include relevant topics for individuals or businesses in the languages they're most confident in. And since 2008, more than 300 Vancity employees have taught over 20,000 people in our communities in over 30 languages.
So we have been able to offer education and awareness to our communities to let them know what a co-op is and how it can value our PSWs, how it can value our clients. And now people are coming to us just based on our cooperative model and not really just as an alternative to another company for home care.
That being able to live those principles of concern for community and education and well-being, that's been an important part of this COVID experience that we've had. So it does resonate. It resonates through the things that we do for our employees, whether it's through education, through what benefits we offer, through what pension plans, on living wages. It's a very, very important part of who we are, because being able to ensure that you live your cooperative values on the farm, but not being able to live them where the individuals who work for you would really just be hypocritical. And I'm proud to be able to say that we're not. That what we are is we are living those values that we espouse, those 7 cooperative principles. They're also the 7 values that we value for our employees as well.
Obviously, that's one of the 7 principles of a co-op, the co-op model is, really supporting cooperatives and really investing in that cooperative value chain. In our situation, that's where it really manifests itself, is the value chain itself. So when we only have relationships with democratically, cooperatively organized producer groups. So these are coffee growers that have come together and established co-ops to represent themselves and to create a business to sell their coffees on the market directly. So this is the first step of our value chain that's based off the cooperative model. Interestingly for us too, secondarily, so the fair trade model that we support, so the small producer symbol, or the SPP, it's SPP, it's a Spanish acronym, Símbolo de Pequeños Productores, so the small producer symbol in English. And this is a fair trade organization that is 100% owned by small producer organizations that are democratically organized.
Principle 6 is, in my view, very much alive and well in Atlantic Canada and the Atlantic Canadian credit union system. Really, our approach to business is one of an aggregation model. So what that allows us to do is pool our resources, pool the way our approach to business as a consolidated unit, if you would, of cooperatives. Even though we are 45 individually owned credit unions, we really present as one. So that allows us to really amp up the good work that we do in communities. And so we're entrusted to reimagine this cooperative model for future generations. And really, I think that Atlantic Canadian credit unions really do a great job of that, of future-proofing the system of a network of individually owned cooperatives for future generations. We do that in a lot of ways. We have a regional marketing program, so that's almost 45, 47 credit unions, all look the same and or really show up and market the same. So in communities, it would be hard pressed to tell one credit union is different from the other credit union. We have the same core banking system, and we partner with other cooperatives to really, again, amplify the awareness of credit unions in Atlantic Canada, and it allows us to approach business differently. One of the classic or more recent examples that I can point to, business examples, is we're able to get involved in some large affordable housing projects. Very key. Housing is a crisis everywhere in Canada, particularly here in Atlantic Canada, and more specific in the Halifax market. So we're able to take large loans, mortgages on with developers. So we have about a $60 million project on the way now. And because of our cooperation amongst cooperatives approach, we're able to take that very important funding project that will change people's lives, but also be able to share it with other credit unions. So it's not one credit union advancing a $60 million project, it's multiple credit unions through Atlantic Central and League Savings and Mortgage that are able to get involved in that and want to get involved in that, but can get involved in it in a way that makes sense to them and in a way that financially meets their risk profile. So it's a very unique, very, very unique approach to business that does change people's lives.
Climate change is a direct threat to our mission and purpose as an organization, which is financial security for Canadians and our communities. So we're involved in using every lever we can to try to address both the mitigation of climate change risks, so the reduction of emissions, and also adaptation and resilience to the risks. So we do that obviously through our insurance, but also through other levers that we have. For example, our investment portfolio, where we're committed to a net zero by 2050 goal for our investment portfolio, and where we use our capital in a range of different ways to invest in climate change solutions and in helping build the resilience of Canadian communities.
There's nothing that is more attached to the environment than our members' farms. The reality is that when you look at a farm, it is about being able to ensure that there's generational sustainability. So this is not a business that a farm that comes in, makes a lot of money and leaves. It's about investing for the next generation and the next generation. So as part of the broader dairy sector and the commitment that we have to being carbon neutral, Gay Foods also has its targets and its goals and works with our plants and our facilities to be able to ensure that what we're doing is being able to reduce our carbon footprint. There's lots of opportunity within the cooperative, but also right back to the farm. Each one of the farms, regulated by Dairy Farmers of Ontario and Dairy Farmers of Canada, all have targets and goals on being able to reduce their footprint. More so than anybody, the farmer has to be able to ensure that the environment is in balance, because they not only have their lives and their children's lives and their grandchildren's lives to depend upon it, it also impacts their ability to be able to process, produce, and be able to balance that between the farm being able to be sustainable and not. And so therefore, there's always been a natural piece to it. The new legislation, the new elements that we're moving towards, you will see a great deal of change that's taking place on the farms. Less waste, less energy being used, less water being used today than just 7 years ago. Every single investment is made with that in mind on a farm level, as it is at Gay Foods. So we're absolutely aligned in being able to understand that sustainability on the farm also equals sustainability and environmental stewardship within Gay Foods as well.
Yes, I'm so excited about the work Vancity is doing around climate change. In fact, Vancity has created 5 climate commitments to help build a clean and fair world. One is our net zero by 2040 across our mortgages and loans. And what this means is the carbon emitted from Vancity's lending portfolio will be eliminated or significantly reduced, with any remaining emissions being brought to net zero. This work is in progress right now, and we will be setting targets for this for 2025. And most recently, Vancity is announcing another first, and it's a credit card that counts your carbon footprint. So beginning in 2023, Vancity Visa cardholders will be able to track their the estimated carbon emissions from their credit card purchases. So every purchase that they make, they'll be able to see the impact or the carbon emission that their purchases are having. So really, this is helping cardholders understand the carbon footprint of their purchases, and it's educating them on how they can reduce their carbon footprint. But in the meantime, Vancity does not lend to oil, gas, or to many other carbon-intensive industries. We also understand that becoming net zero means doing things differently, and we're not apologetic about that. We think that this is an important part of what we need to do, and it's about educating our membership. It's about creating innovative products and services that become a win-win. One, it achieves the goals that our members are looking for, but it also serves a purpose in how we can protect our people and planet and prosperity as a global society.
I've always believed that cooperatives can make the world a better place. And I think they do that by bringing people together, respecting people, respecting the planet, making sure that people are equally compensated, that they get they participate, they're able to take part in the decision making about their own business, they have a stake in the business, they're encouraged to participate. That's got to be the way we go going forward, because if we continue at this rate, I believe that the capitalist economy will collapse, the planet will collapse, and we will be leaving a desperate situation for our children and grandchildren. So I think the cooperative economy is the way forward.
An economy that increasingly fails to meet the needs of more than 80% of humanity requires a fundamental transformation. What is needed is an economy that can coexist with the natural world and not degrade the ability of Earth to support life. We already know how to build that economy. People around the world are building it daily. The overriding purpose of cooperatives and social enterprises is to meet human needs, and they can and do meet the full range of human need. They greatly lower income inequality and have a better track record of protecting the natural world. Is it possible to build a global network of cooperatives that unites people around our planet, ensuring living incomes, food, shelter, education, healthcare for each other? The answer is clearly yes. What can each cooperative contribute? That is our challenge.